Today's getting started video, we're going to go over tool offsets and fixture offsets. Let's get started. So to begin, there are of course many different ways that you can set tool offsets and fixture offsets. We're just going to go over this method that I use, that I found success with, and that I want to share with you guys. This method, I can't take any credit for this. This all came from Aaron Gough on a post from Practical Machinist, who had created a set of macros to help Fadal users automatically set your tools and your fixtures. So I'll put a link to that Practical Machinist thread down below in the description, as well as Aaron's YouTube and his website, because he also makes some pretty cool looking knives. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go check his stuff out. And all the steps that we're going to go over in this video are the same steps that you would see on that thread, as well as in the README file from the master zip folder that you would download if you have a Fadal machine. So let's get right into it. Step number one for Aaron is a little bit different from what I did. This is the only variance that I have in his steps. His first step is to download the files from his GitHub, which I'll put a link to that also down below. You download those files, which are program number 9999, that's the custom macro chooser, 9001, which is the tool setting macro, and then 9002, which is the fixture offset compensator. His first step is to download all those, transfer those over to your machine, and then start editing things or changing stuff up. What I did is step number two before I did step number one, which step number two is going to your machine and finding out your spindle height from the cold start position down to the table. So we're going to do that first, and then we'll jump back and download our files. The reason why I did that is so I could update stuff offline and then transfer it over to my machine. That way, in case anything happened to that program or my machine and I had to redo stuff, I had a safe offline version that I could reference or pull back up or transfer over. That way I didn't have to redo any of these steps. They could just be done and just transfer over and run. So to start that step, let's go over to the machine. I have my Heimer in there. So let's take that out. And I am not at my cold start position, so what I'm going to do is go over to enter next command. I'm going to type in HO. I'm going to go back to the home position. If you haven't set that in any other method, that's going to be your cold start position. So go ahead and do that. Alright, I am back at my cold start position. You see here, XYZ 0. Awesome. We are there. So the way I did this is I use a pair of 1, 2, 3 blocks. Set them up just like this. You got a tall guy and another guy laying down. And then you bring your spindle over. So you're going to keep track of this Z height in a few minutes, and also your gauge block heights. So we're going to jog over. No, I'm not jogging. Okay, let's go into jog. We're going to go jog over to my blocks. And down. Sounds like a duck. I don't know if you guys can hear my MPG, but it sounds like a little duck quacking. So we're going to come down. I'm not going to update my numbers, but I'm going to show you guys exactly what I did. So we go from here. What I did is I brought my spindle down to my table, or my blocks that are on the table. And I kept coming down, and then moving my blocks back and forth until it checked just slid ever so slowly down. I'm not going to go all the way down. That's a considerable gap between my spindle and my blocks right now, but you could bring it down to where it just slides. I know Aaron probably used a little bit more precise method. He has an actual digital height sensor base. I think it's from EcuSize. And he slid up underneath that to find that height. I might get those in the near future, or get one of those. But this is just the way I started off doing this and currently do it. So you would go and find this number of your blocks sliding back and forth. Take note of this Z height. So in this case, I got minus 14.65. And then I know that my gauge block heights are 1, 2, 3 blocks. So we got 3 inches and then another 2 inches. So 5 total. So what you want to do is take your Z height and then subtract the height of your blocks. In this case, it would be minus 19 and change. After I found that, I went back to my tool setting macro, which is the macro 9001, and updated my V2 variable. What that is that offset, and they'll use that in the programs to offset your tools to make it easier to set stuff. So if we go to my tool tables and we push spacebar a couple times, we'll get to my variables. There we go. V2. This pulled it up and it hasn't changed. I don't use variables at all on this machine. My number was minus 19.9015. So that's what I have in my macro variable or macro program. So I updated that, and then offline, and I transferred those 3 programs: the custom macro chooser, the tool setting macro, and then the fixture offset compensator. I transferred those 3 programs over to my machine. And what I used was the FadalCNC DNC setup. I'll put a link to the hardware for that, as well as my video for setting up that. So that's how I connected to this, and it's real easy and nice to be able to send programs from my computer directly over to my Fadal and not have to worry about whether it's USB or some other RS-232 connection. Super nice. So with that, assuming that you've found your spindle height, and then you updated your variable, and you transferred your programs over to your machine, let's get into the actual real first step at the machine. What that is doing your first tool offsets. So what we're going to do is I'm going to remove my blocks from the machine, and then I'm going to go jog this up. Actually, let's make the machine work for me once you go home. So I don't remember exactly how my Heimer was in there, so we're going to do TC, 1, and that way I'll just manually input it into the carriage and then it'll grab it. So TC, 1. It's going to go pretend to put that tool away that I never put away. Hammer in there, and then there we go. Got my hammer. So what these programs do is they also assume that your tool number 1 is whatever measurement tool that you have. In this case, it's my Heimer. But in your case, you could use a wiggler, you could use some other probe or something, a contact sensor, something. whatever it is, just make sure it's tool number 1. And if it's not tool number 1, or I guess it first verifies if it's tool number 1, you want to look up here. If you push manual a couple times, you'll get to this MDI screen. Tool number 1. Mine's already set there, but if that said, for instance, tool number 3, all you gotta do is type in, I always type in stuff here, you could probably do it in the other screen, is type in set 2, all one word, you push that, you go back, this will then set to tool number 1. So that basically will set the current tool in the pocket associated with that tool as tool number 1. And everything from there on your carousel, going counterclockwise, will be to tool 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we got tool number 1 set up. Now we want to go and find it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the utilities menu, something you'll use a lot on the Fadal, and we're going to use these two in this video, but to start off we're going to do tool settings cycle. So number 1, alright, enter tool, starting tool number. So normally I would do more than one tool, but for this example I'm just going to do my Heimer, but my starting tool number is going to be number 1, and then my ending number in this instance is going to be 1, but you could put whatever number for however many tools that you have. So we're going to just do 1 and 1. Now what are our tool setting options? What do we want to do? We want to jog, we want to probe left, probe right. Well, we want to jog. We're just going to jog to position. Enter height, block, size. So again, if you have a digital tool setter in your machine, you can absolutely use that. In my case, I just got 1, 2, 3 blocks, so my block size that I'm going to use is going to be 3.0. Alright, put in our block size. Now our tool setting options. We want to enter the tool diameter. No, we want to locate the length. So we're going to type 2. Push jog to move to height. We're going to push jog, we're going to go and find it, and then we're going to push the manual button to get back to that menu. So, we just push jog, we're in the jog mode. Let's go and off. In my case, for my other tools, I use a piece of paper or a shim up underneath this when I'm bringing the tool down so I can measure to see if it's touching. If you're doing that, I'd probably recommend you use the same thing for in case you're using a Heimer, the same, shim thickness or piece of paper, and shove it up underneath this to try and reduce any variation between your Heimer measurement and your actual tool heights. Because if you didn't use that, then you'd be off by your sheet of thickness of paper. So we're going to keep coming down. Over, come down, slip it down to 1 thou. Close, step it down to 1/10. And you're there. So we're going to push the manual button again. And now it wants to go back up to your 0 position. So we're going to push start. There we go. If you had more than one tool, you just do that same procedure for however many tools that you have. So you've now set your tools. The next step is to go and use one of the macros that you've transferred over to your machine. So if you're in the enter next command screen, all you gotta do is push the space bar, go to quick keys menu right here, go over to custom macro. push 0. And we want to convert negative tool lengths to positive. Before we do this, let's go over and check our tool lengths. So we're going to type DT, which is our data tables for our tool lengths. You can see tool number 1, which is my Heimer, and you can see that I have a current length of minus 12.9-ish inches. So we're going to go back now to the custom macro, go to 0. And we want to use this first option. So after you find your tools and use that utilities menu, you want to come over here, go to custom macros, and go to convert negative tool lengths to positive. So we're going to do 1, push enter. Tool number 1 has a negative length of 12.91. Do you want to convert it? Yes. Push 1, enter. Converted. Tool number 1, positive offset. So basically took our spindle height, that 19 and change, and added it to this number. And now we have a positive tool length. Push enter to continue. It's going to go scroll through and check all the other tools. If you had more than just that one Heimer in there, it would check and find all those other tools and then ask you if you wanted to update all of those. In my case, I didn't have that, so it's not going to ask me anything. Alright, so we've set our tools. What's next? Well, what we want to do now is find our fixture offsets. So we got our tool number 1 in there. We're going to come over here, or you're going to go back into that utilities menu, push UT. We're going to go to fixture offset settings. So number 2. What do we want to do? Well, there's a number of options that we can do. We can select number locator, jog to locate, store location, find a center of a circle, find a midpoint, find a corner, find a 90-degree corner, and move to fixture offset. What we want to do is jog to locate. So we're going to push 2. Press jog to move to the fixture location, or push manually exit. So what we're going to do is we're going to push jog. We're going to go find a position, and then we're going to push the manual button to get back to that menu. So let's go over the X. We're going to set this front corner as our 0. So let's go over here. Let's bring it down to the Z. And let's find the X. Touch off, make sure that side of the diameter of your, I'll turn it so you guys can see it. And we're there. All right. So now we're at 0 in what we're going to call the X. So we're going to push the manual button, go back to that menu, and now we want to say store location. We've jogged to that location. Now we want to store it. Let's go to 3. Store location. Which axes do you want to store? Well, we want to store the X. And when we go through each of these axes, make sure you look at here. Compare this number that you see for your fixture offset, and then compare it to your actual position. So we're going to do the X first. Look at that. See, look, we just took our X position and just stored it. So now let's go back. We'll push the manual button, Let's jog to locate our Y this time. Push the jog button. Oops, wrong way. Go forward in the Y. Scoot over in the X. Go back in the Y now. Okay. Go back to the manual button. It's going to go back to that menu. We've jogged to locate. Now we're going to go store that position that we're at. And because we're touching off on the Y, when we're at 0, we want to store that location. So we're going to push Y. It took our Y value, stuck it right in there for fixture offset number 1. Let's go back to that menu. Now we want to go find our Z. So again, we're going to go jog to locate. Press the jog button and move around. Alright, so we're going to push the jog button. Come back in the Y, back off that part. Come up in the Z. Go back in the Y. And now we're going to come straight down and find our Z. Alright. We are there. So we're going to go push the manual button. We're going to go back to that menu. Again, store location. We've jogged there, now we want to store it. What axes do we want to store? Well, we want to store the Z. Took our Z value, stuck it down in there. Alright. So we've found that corner. We've found the X offset, the Y offset, and the Z offset. Let's go ahead and we're just going to jog to get out of this. Push 9, push 8. Let's get out of there. So now we're just going to jog our Z up. You want to get up and off of this. All right. So you found that via the Fadal offsets. Now we want to go back to our custom macros. Go over to custom macro, push 0. Come down, fixture offset compensate. Push 2. It's going to load. This program updates fixture offset Z position to take into account the length of the reference tool. In our case, it's going to be my Heimer. Enter the fixture offset. So in this case, we are in fixture offset number 1. Z position of fixture offset. So if you guys remember, we are at -7 and change. It's now going to be at -14. So do we want to update that? Yes. We're going to do 1. Done. Push any key to continue. Alright. So now we've gone through the setting up of your tools. We've gone through the setting up of your fixture. Well, how do we know if our fixture was right? You know, how do we get some kind of sanity check or some warm and fuzzy feeling to say, you know, that these macros actually worked and they didn't, you know, screw anything up? Well, a quick way to do that is if we go over to the MDI screen. So if you push the manual a couple times, you get to this screen. We can type in I'm in format 2, you can see it here. Type in G90, which that's absolute mode. You can see I'm in incremental mode G91. I could change this in my settings or my parameters. I just haven't done it yet. I just always just typed it. Also, just out of habit. So I do this in real life as far as my day job. So G90, G54, that's also your fixture offset number 1. And then we want to type in X0, Y0. And then we want to push start. So it's going real slow. The default it was probably moving by the default feed rate. So I'm going to turn my feed rate back down and speed it up. So now I just typed that in. And what that says is go to fixture offset number 1, the absolute position of x0, y0. So I did that. Let's go see if it's correct. So we're going to go jog down. If you jog it down, when you do that too, make sure that your Z is up off of your part. That way, if it does, for whatever reason, go to the wrong XY position, you're not going to go break a tool tip or end mill or whatever it is. Make sure you're up in the clearance position before you do that. So you bring it back down and looking down, that is dead nuts on that corner. The center of that ball is in line this way as well as this way. So we've checked that our X and our Y align to the corner of the fixture. But what about the Z? The Z is what actually really changed in the fixture compensator. So what do? Well, we've already commanded the X and Y to go to 0. If we commanded the Z to go to 0, don't do that. It's going to do something weird. From here, you want to push manual twice. So you want to push manual and then go back to that screen. You'll see that here it says fixture offset 1 is applied. Awesome. You see that we're still at XY0, but you might see that your Z value will change. What you want to do in this instance is go over to the jog. We're going to go and jog it over in the X and the Y. And what we want to do is jog down on top of the part of the fixture, whatever it is that you use to set your 0. And we're going to come down, in this case, where the timer says 0. Keep coming, keep coming. Alright. We are at 0. Where's the 1? Okay. So, we're at 0, right on top of the part. And we take note of our Z value, 6.9916. So for you keen folks, that might actually look a little familiar. So if we go from here, let's go to the manual screen. We're going to go to our tool offsets. Look at that. Well, we're 1/10 off. But if this aligns to this, it changed it back, but I think this is the machine position. But if it changed back, so it's G54. Yeah. But it applied it back again. If this Z value matches what is in your tool table, you're golden. You know, at least that's what I've used to say, okay, I know I have a pretty high confidence that my Z is good, my X and Y is good. Both my tool offsets and my fixture offsets are good to go. So that's the last step. Now we can probably just go jog up in the Z. Actually, we'll just go to the home position. HO. There we go. Some Y. And there we go. Now we're ready to go run our program. So that's pretty much it. You've now set up your tool offsets, you've set up your fixture offsets, and you're ready to run a program. So guys, I hope that was helpful. I hope that was informational. It was really important for me to try and explain that and show that not only for my own sake, but to help show you guys, anyone who is new to Fadal, how to set up, work plans or fixture offsets or tool offsets. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you think it deserved it, if you guys like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I like to do this kind of stuff. We're going to be doing a few more of these getting started videos for Fadal. We might do a few other topics or things, and then I also got some machining coming up that I want to get into. So with that, guys, Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. And I'll see you guys in the next one.